right, this is the next episode of True Wrestling Fan Discussions, continuing our Dark Side of the Ring review series. This is going to be an episode about Abdullah the Butcher. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank, and man, I don't know about you, but I think this was probably the worst one we've done yet. I don't know. This was never a guy I got behind, not babyface, not heel, not anything. I thought the man couldn't wrestle. I thought whatever he was bringing to the table just it didn't belong. And everybody that was interviewed tonight swears up and down he's the greatest of all time. And the fact that they say
Well,
he made Carlos Colon is 100% garbage.
that
So,
was only this guy that said that. Atlas said that.
yeah,
They
well,
were
take
referring
my.
they were referring to like his hardcore style. They weren't referring to him as a wrestler overall being
I hope not.
great. So
But
let's
in any
let's just
event, yeah,
okay.
let's just get through it. Mick Foley was the first one they interviewed. He said the fans would root for their favorite wrestlers to survive against Abdullah the Butcher. Um, Foley also talked about how he had a poster of him in college. He put him on a wall, and he would tell people he's his father.
I don't know why you would say that.
I maybe he was taking too many chair shots at that point. I don't know. It was good to see Hugo Savinovich be interviewed here. The former Spanish announce table always had the table take the fall. He would talk about Abdullah saying he put the fear into everybody. Hugo was also his manager when he got to Puerto Rico. Um, then they started in with his interviewing his family. Josephine Heron, which is the sister of Abdullah, or Larry Shreve is his real name. She talked about they were raised in a two-bedroom house, and there were eight of them. Ralph Shreve was his brother. Um, he was talking about it. He suggested if anybody was to do an interview with his brother, he suggested that you stand on the other side of the room because he had a tendency to jump at you or whatever. Then they interviewed Larry Shreve himself, Abdullah the Butcher. He talked about how his parents worked hard, raising them, and he found out his mom was scrubbing floors at a funeral home. He didn't know that she was on her hands and knees doing this, making whatever money they could for the family. Um, he claims he didn't learn to read or write, which we're going to find out later on in this program. Allegedly, it's false.
And allegedly,
And
it's true.
I mean, no. I'm
No,
saying that he said.
I'm saying it's allegedly it's false, allegedly it's true.
Well, no,
But
I'm saying allegedly it's false that he didn't know how to read or write.
yeah, no, I know what you're
That's
saying.
what I meant. That several key people that are being interviewed here have saw him either read a menu or write a letter or whatever the case is.
And he claims he dropped out of school in the second grade. Is that right or no?
That's what he said.
I don't believe that for one second. Second grade? I don't know anybody that dropped out of school. I mean, I know he was in Canada. I
If
mean,
they've dropped out before high school, I haven't heard of anybody at least before fifth grade. At least not unless you're in Western times.
the story that I heard was that he dropped out of high school. But on this show, the second grade thing, I think the second grade story is being told to match up with the fact that he didn't read or write. Because if he dropped out in high
Yeah,
school, it's like, how can you get through high school
exactly.
without? So
And I believe, and I've read an article in the past that said he was a ninth grade dropout to
right,
pursue professional wrestling.
right. That sounds a lot more realistic, but we'll get to that
Uh,
later on.
mm-hmm. Don't worry, we got plenty of coming
Mhm.
here. Um, they said how he pretty much wanted to work. He shined shoes. He did janitorial services. His sister pretty much said he was a hustler. Um, he also trained old people in karate. As a kid, he was selling candy to kids, doing whatever he could
He's an
for
entrepreneur.
his parents.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah. The manager of the place where he was teaching old people karate said that he should be a wrestler, and he was like, I don't want to do that garbage or whatever. But for whatever reason, he takes the trip to Detroit. That's where he meets the Sheik and falls in love with the Sheik's style of wrestling. And we covered the Sheik on the Dark Side of the Ring once before the FMW, how violent they were, and the Sheik took partake in that, or if I'm saying it right. Then, of course, we get our friend for this season, Tony Atlas. It's like he's on every episode now. He knows everything about everybody. He said that he used to imitate the Sheik. Um, his dad actually didn't want him to be in that business, and he showed his dad a trick that they would do back in the day. As far as he told him to hit him in the head,
Hmm.
and then how magically, he was bleeding. He showed him the blade trick, which Hannibal, which we'll get to in a little bit, showed how it was done back in the day, where you would put the blade. Although for Abdullah, we were finding out later on that he was placing them elsewhere, almost like he was Freddy Krueger. So he went to Puerto Rico and wrestled there with the likes of Carlos Colon and Hugo Siminovich. They said in 1983 he was making a lot of money down there. They said he was very cautious of his money. If that's the case, he wouldn't be in the position he's in now. If you're cautious with your money, because I know tight-fisted people that still have their lunch money from the third grade and they're 60 years old or something.
Yeah, they said he was traveling. He was in Japan. He was all over the place, making a lot of money.
There,
Which also calls into question, if you don't know how to read or write, how are you traveling all over the world making this money?
and how do you know that you're making the right amount if you can't read the paycheck?
Well, I guess the number. I don't know, man. Let's not
Well, if
make
you can't read, you can't read numbers.
No,
I'm just saying.
no. I mean, numbers aren't the same as being able to read like letters,
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
He made sure that his family got a good sum of his money. I don't know how much he was sending them to, but he made sure he tried to take care of them. Then they were talking about how today he's in legal trouble and financial hardship. Gee, I wonder why. I'm going to get to that in a second. He said he pretty much doesn't know who to trust. Okay, no problem with that. Tony Atlas had said that he was the best villain you ever saw. Now, I'll give him that. He's done a stint in WCW, and we did one of the Halloween Havocs.
Unfortunately, we did
with
match.
Abdullah the Butcher, where he gets shocked in the match, and the damn helmet's not even on his head. But okay, no problem. I forgot what the name of that match was called. It's been racking my brain all night. I didn't want to look it up.
I'd rather forget.
Thunderdome or something like that. Something like that. Yeah.
I'd rather forget about that.
Yeah, I'm telling you. His brother said he made you a better wrestler. That I'm not buying. Because honestly, I've never seen this guy do a wrestling move. A punch and a fork to your head is not a wrestling move.
Okay, but here's the thing. Apparently he drew money. The thing is, I wasn't watching back then, like in the early 80s. I wasn't when that wasn't mainstream. So apparently he drew money. That's
hardcore wrestling in Japan was taken off. And so they paid him for the violence of it.
Right. So I mean, as far as his work, I didn't think he was a good wrestler, but apparently the guy drew money. So I mean, what the hell do I know?
He was a good fighter, but I wouldn't classify him as a wrestler. To wrestle, you have to do a wrestling maneuver. Never saw him do one. So Atlas had said he made Carlos Colon and as well as Tony Atlas. Now, if you're saying you made him as far as a hardcore type of wrestling, then maybe I'll buy it. But if you're saying that you made Carlos Colon the wrestler, then I'm going to call BS on that.
I don't know about that one.
No, Carlos Colon was already a legend before Abdullah the Butcher ever showed up in Puerto Rico. If you made Tony Atlas a better hardcore wrestler, okay, fine. Couldn't hurt his career. They talked about how he was an iconic part of Japanese culture, which he was. He was huge in anime and everything over there. Because again, the hardcore style of wrestling was just starting, and Japanese fans ate it up. Yeah. They loved it. Still love it to this day. According to Foley, they said he recorded an album in Japan. Oh boy. Anyway, this is where the story gets interesting. They interviewed Devin Nicholson, aka Hannibal. He started in Stampede Wrestling. In 2006, he started working with Abdullah. He mentored him pretty much. Abdullah mentored Hannibal, and he showed how to hide the blade pretty much in your wrist or whatnot. Now, his bloodlust is what kept Abdullah out of WWE. This is where Vince McMahon didn't give him another look, never signed him. So let me ask you this question. I know the Hall of Fame goes more above and beyond the WWE to where you don't necessarily have to wrestle there in order to be put into the Hall of Fame. The question to me is why is it in 2011 Vince McMahon inducted this man? Well, they put him in. Terry Funk inducted him. I just don't understand. I'll get to that in a little later.
I guess they were running out of people.
Huh?
I guess they were just running out of people that year. I don't know. It was short that
Two,
year, so like, yeah, let's
2011, yeah,
throw
probably.
Abdullah the Butcher on there. I don't know. Who the hell knows?
Well, let's put Barry Horowitz in there then. Shit,
Barry
Mike
Horowitz should be in
Sharp.
there. I'd put Barry Horowitz in there. He worked for the company for a long time. I don't think
This
he's
is
a
true.
great talent, but I'm just saying at least he put his time in.
Yeah, and then he finally got that contract,
Oh
but
yeah.
regardless of how short it was.
Oh.
Well, let's put Jeff
He
Jarrett in
did
there.
more than Abdullah the Butcher did in WWF, right?
Oh,
Because he never
seriously,
even
yeah.
wrestled. Because he never even wrestled there.
Never the first time he ever laid foot on their soil was when he was inducted and then showed up at WrestleMania.
Right.
That was it.
Jerry Jarrett didn't even hire him. I saw an interview with Jarrett a while ago. He's like, I wasn't going to hire a guy like that.
No, because you don't. First, that's the type of guy that's just gonna hurt you, and not many. I don't think not many people in WWE would have even worked with him.
No, if you watch shoot interviews too, wrestlers shoot on him. No, nobody has anything good to say about him. It's all bad. It's
I
all bad.
believe it. So, what was I gonna say? They had the story about what was it? The daytime show in Canada that they went on a daytime talk show and they were talking about the fork
He
and
pulled the Vader. He pulled it, but worse.
yeah, he attacks
But worse.
the
Way
announcer,
worse.
hits him with a plate, drew a little bit of blood with the fork. Of course, Hannibal picks up the other co-host. Of course, he said, now, this day and age, you couldn't do that if you wanted to. Well, how about in that day and age, you shouldn't have been able to do it?
He
But
mentioned that. He said not even really back then you could have really done it, but you still, I don't know. He went up the script. He's like in his late 60s too at this point. I don't know. What is this guy doing?
now he's 82.
Yeah,
But
what
at this
happened? He's in his
point,
late
is
60s. Like, what are you doing?
yeah, they said he wrestled supposedly for over 7 decades. Because if you look up his bio, he supposedly had his last match in 2010, but it says that he was active up until 2019. So, and that could be
Oh, Lord.
appearances, independent stuff, whatever. Hannibal, they said, had finally made the WWE, but that was short lived. WWE did sign him to a 3-year deal, but because of various blood tests, he tested positive for hepatitis C, and they had to release him. Not getting into it in this one, but Hannibal does eventually sue WWE for that, mentioning discrimination due to the blood test, and they settled out in 2012. But he blamed Abdullah the Butcher for it and he had the videos showing it. And this is what I was talking about. He would have the blades on his fingers. Now, Tony Atlas went back and defended Abdullah, saying he didn't have to tell him. He could have bladed himself. He didn't have to ask him to do it because back in the day, they were borrowing blades. And he said, What do you do when you borrow it? You give it back." Damn, that's crazy. I mean, that's just downright insane, especially in the 80s of doing this.
But the AIDS
So
epidemic that hit in the late 80s,
exactly,
kind of surprising.
yeah.
But I don't know. The thing about this situation is that the thing with I think Hannibal in that lawsuit, I don't want to get too deep into it because I mean I don't really know that much about it, but I think he tried to say that he didn't know that he was gonna blade him, and I don't believe that. I think what happened was he didn't know he had Hep C, and he bladed himself, and then he bladed Hannibal. That's how he got the Hep C, and then Hannibal just turned around and sued him. But I don't think that he didn't know. How do you not know you're getting bladed? How do you not feel that?
Do you
Especially
not?
when he's doing it
And
obviously.
do you not talk before the match as far as what you're going to
I
do?
would imagine, but let's for argument's sake that they didn't have that conversation.
You know the guy's
No,
reputation.
you feel it,
Yeah,
and then you see your blood. So I don't know about the he didn't give him permission. I think he just did that. In lawsuits you have to, finagle things a little bit. I don't know. Either way, this guy's in the wrong. Abdullah's in the wrong. Hep C, you don't do that. Like, and not only that, you don't use the same blade you bladed yourself to blade somebody else.
exactly. And the
Common
best
sense.
part is Abdullah claims that Hannibal gave it to him,
Right.
but
Well, of
yet
course he's gonna
there
say
were
that.
blood tests going back years.
Right. He had a history
That
of it. He
a
had a history
history
of
of it. So how is Hannibal giving it,
and it was a
just now?
it was a rare form and all that. And then he pulled the thing that he didn't get he didn't know how to read. so he didn't know he was getting those subpoenas or whatever.
Yeah, well, when he got
He pulled.
sued, he had Jocelyn Marshall, who was his caregiver. She would read the letters to him, and all of a sudden he would break down and cry. He said he didn't
Right.
even
Okay.
know.
So this is what I think he pulled a Chinjigante. I don't know if you do you remember Chinjigante? You know his story.
Sounds familiar.
So he's the mob boss. I forget which family. It's in New York, but
Of course.
he used to dress up with a robe and he used to walk around with a robe and slippers. He did this for like 40 years, and he used to act like he was crazy. That way he wouldn't have to stand trial. He got away with it for like 40 years. Eventually, he ended up having to do time, but he tried to pull a Chinjigante in a different way. Oh, I don't know how to read. Well, I didn't know that.
I've seen that in The Sopranos with Junior.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, it was inspired by that.
Junior did it. Yeah, Junior
Yeah,
did it
yeah.
too.
It was inspired by that, yeah. But no, I think Junior was actually starting to go senile though on the show. I haven't seen this in years.
After,
He was starting to lose it though. I don't think it was enough.
after he was playing it, then it started.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I started watching it again after that horrible prequel movie they made.
Oh, that was god awful.
Man, I waited so many years for that trash.
That was garbage. Well, anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, exactly. He Abdullah lost the case by default in not
Default
only
because he didn't show up.
Ontario and Georgia.
Because he didn't show up. Yeah.
So Hannibal's all happy because he received $2.3 million, which he hasn't even
Well,
today gotten a
right.
dime.
Yeah, he won, but he didn't actually
He
receive
won.
money.
He's not going. And I'm surprised there's no mandate court thing that says you have to pay or else.
No, it's a civil thing. They can't take him away. They can't lock him up. He's saying he doesn't have the money. That happens all the time. I think even in the OJ Simpson thing, I don't think the civil trial, I don't think they've actually gotten the money that they were awarded, the Goldman family. I could be wrong, but that happens all the time in civil cases.
That brings back memories. Oof. I blame OJ for the Knicks losing that year, but don't get me started. Don't the Bronco Chase
Oh, I think
Rockets game on. Come on.
Well,
Anyway, I love when real quick when they were mentioning now Abdullah. They've got him set up in one, in the interview. But then if you notice, he's got to change the colors. It's like an interview from before. And then they asked him about Hannibal. He says, "I don't want to talk about it."
you don't talk about it.
Well, that's the sound of a guilty man. If you don't want to talk about it, then
Well, I mean, what is he gonna say? He's just gonna say, "No, I
defend
didn't."
yourself. You not saying nothing tells
He's gonna have
everybody
to lie
you're guilty.
again. He's just gonna have to lie again.
Well, he's used to it. He's good at it.
I don't know.
So, of course, Tony Atlas saying Hannibal, shouldn't have sued him. He shouldn't be given a dime. Yeah, of course, because Tony's defending him. They're probably the only guy besides his family that's defending him.
Yeah, because Tony said that that's the risk that you take, but I don't buy into that. That's taking a little too far.
Meanwhile, he's the same one saying that, oh, I used to take the same blade from Abdullah. Oh, okay, so the same thing could have happened to you, but you're not going to blame the guy if he got Pep City, and you're saying what you're saying you didn't practice years ago. Come on.
I don't know. I guess they must be friends. I don't know.
Possibly. But as of late, like I said, he continued to make appearances, wrestling, autograph sessions, and whatnot. What was I going to say? Let me get to this next part. Now here comes here's why he can't pay. And Jocelyn is showing the photos of Abdullah's house, how bad it is and
light
whatnot.
Fixtures and all this other stuff. Okay.
All this money you made, and apparently he was in business ventures as well. And you can't be in business ventures if you can't read or write. You got to sign your name. You can't just do an X. And all these things he's done.
We got to read contracts. Forget about signing a name. You got to read contracts.
and let's not forget the fine print in that contract. I was just like the money just went bye-bye. Now here's what's funny. Several people have said Hannibal has seen him read menus and write letters. Right. McFoley said that he could read a menu. They used to go out to eat 3 times a day. So if you got these guys saying,
we don't believe it.
I don't believe it.
No, we don't believe it.
We don't believe it. Yeah. So, and then of course to close out the show in 2021, this is what really gives you the whole 360 twist here. Hannibal brutalizes a referee,
right? Yeah,
with a spike, with promoter having no medics on staff.
He said it went on too long. You know, it was kind of weird the way he's telling the stories as if it wasn't him.
Yeah, like he
right?
was somebody
Like
else.
like he's telling the story as if like he watched it and he wasn't an active participant.
And
And
even
he's
they,
he's like, it went in. No, no, you stabbed him. It didn't. The spike didn't just go in.
and you
And
just
I'm
didn't do it in one spot. I
right.
mean, you
Yeah, the
went
guy
all
was.
over this
He
guy's
got.
head.
I'm pretty sure he got charged criminally for that. Pretty sure he got charged criminally. I don't
And
know.
they had Lance Storm's
The
voice from the
audio,
podcast
yeah. Like, what do
going,
you?
"What the hell is going on?
Right. And he should have
What the
known
hell is
better.
he
And he should have
doing?"
known better. That's why I want to go back, and that's why I said what I said about I think he did know that this guy was gonna blade him. He knew. It's
Yeah.
just that he didn't know he had Hep C, you know.
Unfortunately, that's the gamble you're going to take. But
He went through a
again,
lot too. He had to get that. So I watched an interview with him. It's not on the show, but that he had they treated him for like 6 months and the medication didn't work. And then it was Billy Graham who reached out to him, heard about his story, and introduced him to his doctor. And his doctor was the one that put him on that or recommended this experimental drug,
mhm,
and it actually cured him of the
cured
Hep
him of the
C.
Hep C.
So
And speaking of superstar Billy Graham, following that Hall of Fame induction in 2011, Billy Graham requested his name be removed from the Hall, saying, and I quote, "It is a shameless organization to induct a bloodthirsty animal such as Abdullah the Butcher into their worthless and embarrassing Hall of Fame, and I want the name of superstar Billy Graham to be no part of it."
Jesus Christ.
And not only that, 4 years after the Hall of Fame induction, in February 2015, Abdullah the Butcher announced on his Facebook page that he would be selling this Hall of Fame ring. Well, that's not the first time somebody's done that.
No, it won't be the last time
I
though.
think Sonny's was in
Don't
a
even. Yeah, yeah,
pawn shop.
yeah.
So, but I mean, Billy Graham literally had no respect. Now, I'm not going to go as far as Billy Graham did here, but I sort of agree with him. Somebody like that, he did. I never really saw him do any type of wrestling move, and the fact that he didn't even wrestle for your company and you're putting him in there. Even when Jerry Lawler, when they showed the induction ceremony, even Jerry Lawler looked like he was puzzled as to say, why is he in here?
He
And
put
then,
him
of
over
course,
though. He still put him over.
well, he had to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he
I
had a
don't know.
job to do. And then Terry Funk, of all people, was the one that inducted him.
And he
Said,
was like, "Oh yeah, I don't care what anybody says." Like the fact when you have to say that, when you have to say, "Well, I don't care the bad things that people say," like you already know this person's
"There's
probably
something
not a
wrong
good
there."
person. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is one person besides a few in the Hall of Fame that I don't agree with being there, and was never a fan of, because again, I've said it a few times here. He didn't wrestle. He fought you. He brawled you. He mutilated you. Now that's great in Japan. They love it, but in the
It's like
80s and
Nick Gage. He was like
90s
the first Nick
here,
Gage. Yeah, he was like the original Nick Gage.
yes, seriously. Or
But
the other guy that ran FMW for a while.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is like one of the episodes where, like, I just don't feel bad for him.
I don't,
Like, I really don't. Like, I
because
don't feel.
there's holes to what he's
Yeah, yeah,
saying. The truth is in
yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for here? There's no proof that what he's saying
I don't know. He
is
just doesn't.
legit.
He doesn't come off as credible.
No.
But anyway, next week is Bam Bam. That should be a good episode.
Oh, I can't wait for that one.
He was a great wrestler. So
The next three are going to be real good. The ones I wanted to see: Bam Bam, Bash at the Beach, and of course our boy Marty.
yeah, Marty, can't wait for that one. All right, well, that's our show. Please let us know what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.